Hello YouTubers. Well, I just fired up the foundry, got another load of brass in it I'm going to melt, and it's evening. The sun just set over there in the west, starting to get dark, and in the 20 minutes or so it's going to take for the brass to melt, it should get plenty dark and we should get to see what this looks like in the dark. Yeah, and it's starting to get hot in there. Yeah, the crucible's starting to glow a little bit. Now, in my last video, I had flames coming out the top of the foundry. And, I mean, if anything, I have the gas turned up higher now, and there are no flames, no visible flames coming up out of the top of the foundry yet. I think what was happening was the foundry was so hot, it was just incandescent air coming out. I don't think it was actual flames. I think the air was just red hot that was coming out of it. And the foundry's still heating up. Oh, there was a little puff of flame coming out. The foundry's still heating up, so I don't think the exhaust is that hot yet. Once it gets good and hot inside and the brass is melted and it's not absorbing any more heat from the flame, then I think the exhaust will start getting hotter. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like once it gets a little darker too. It should be impressive. Okay. It's gotten a little darker, but the foundry has gotten a little hotter. It's been a few minutes since the last segment. So it's really starting to get hot in there, and the exhaust gases are getting hotter and brighter. Let me put my face shield on and give you a peek inside. There we go. Oh yeah, getting hot down there. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera. The brass in the crucible is only just starting to melt. Starting to settle down a little bit in the crucible. So I got a little ways to go yet before it's fully melted and ready to pour. Okay, it's gotten a little darker and the foundry's gotten a little hotter. The brass is almost all melted down in there. Really hot in there. Just a little bit on the top that hasn't melted yet. We'll give it a few more minutes. But sometimes there's a neat fire tornado effect coming out of the exhaust. What's amazing is that in full daylight, as bright as that flame coming out the top is, it's almost totally invisible. I found out the hard way about how hot that exhaust is a couple of times. But it's actually darker than you would think from the image on the camera. So that's why the flame is so visible, I think. So getting close to pouring. I'll put the camera on the tripod and give you a view of the entire process once I'm ready to pour. So a couple more minutes. Let that last little bit of brass in there melt down. Let it get good and hot. So I've got a couple minutes to work it before I pour it, before it solidifies. And away we go. I have some more ingots. Hang on. Well, it's got quite a bit darker. I've got the porch light on to add a little bit of ambient light to the scene. The brass is plenty hot. It's ready to be poured. So first thing I'm going to do is turn off the gas. Oh yeah, it's plenty hot. Put my protective equipment on. As you can see, my leather apron has arrived. I feel much safer with it on. Get my welding gloves on, my face mask on. I'll get that out of there and get it poured. You know what? I forgot to do something. Turn the heat back on for a minute. I'll warm up the mold a little bit, just to make sure that there's no moisture in it. I don't have to worry about a steam explosion. Probably plenty hot. That is hot. Get the dross out of it. A little bit of fire brick insulation that fell in there. Skim it off the top. Okay. Ready to pour. Go. 3 nice ingots. Not too bad. You get the camera off the tripod, I'll give you a close-up view. Okay, everything's still hot as sin. Crucible empty. Got almost all the brass out of it. Just a light film of it left inside. Hot as can be, still inside the foundry. And these ingots, boy, they are hot. They look white on the camera, just sort of bright orange to my eye. They've already solidified. I think I'm going to let them get a little bit cooler before I turn them out of the muffin tin and quench them in water. Hopefully they're not going to stick inside the muffin tin. We'll see. I coated the inside of the cups with some graphite lube, which seems to help prevent them from sticking. I had a little bit of trouble with sticking, especially back when I was using too much flux. The flux did a good job of allowing the brass to solder itself to the steel muffin tin. But I've cut way back on the amount of borax flux I'm using. I've used about half a teaspoonful in this pour, and it worked really well. It allowed me to skim the dross off without any trouble. Inside the crucible is really, really clean. And hopefully the brass ingots aren't going to stick to the inside of the muffin tin. Now one of them you can see isn't as thick as the others because it's cooling down faster. So I got 2 full ingots out of it and maybe a half of one. I'll let them cool a little more and I'll turn them out of the tin and quench them in water. Put it back on the tripod to show you that. Okay, the ingots are still quite hot, especially the full thickness ones, but I'll try turning them out of the muffin pan and quenching them. See how it goes. Oh yeah, all 3 came right out. That's great. Some really hot water in a minute. It's amazing how much heat those brass ingots hold on to. It may still be partly liquid inside. There we go. The boiler's starting to subside. Oh, those are pretty nice and shiny. Amazing how shiny they get when they get quenched. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You pull them out, and I'll give you a close-up view of them. So here they are. I got 2 and a little less than half of one. But these are pretty big ingots. I had to buy a new muffin tin, and it's a lot bigger than the last one. So each of these muffin-sized ingots weighs a couple pounds. There's a lot of brass there. They're still pretty hot, about as hot as boiling water, so they're hard to touch. But yeah, in this light, it's hard to tell how shiny they are. Beautiful, shiny. Beautiful brass color. And people ask me, email me and ask me, why do you bother casting ingots? Why don't you just melt down all the scrap black brass, and then when you're ready to cast something, cast it from that? Why go to the intermediate step of making ingots? And the problem is this scrap brass I'm melting down is really, really dirty. It's got a lot of corrosion on it. It's got a lot of impurities, grease, nastiness. Who knows what's on it? Especially the bullet casings. They're really dirty. And some of this is old plumbing fixtures and other stuff I'm melting down, any kind of brass I can find. And it's really dirty. And when I melt all that stuff down, first off, it takes forever to melt all that stuff down. And once it is melted, I can clean the dross off of it and get rid of a lot of the impurities. So that when I remelt these to actually cast something, it's going to come out pretty clean. And I won't have to, it won't take forever to remelt these, because a couple of these ingots will be enough to fill the crucible and give me enough brass to cast something. Whereas when I'm melting down the bullet casings or the plumbing scrap or whatever, it takes several charges to fill the crucible up a reasonable amount, because it's mostly empty space. And it melts down, and the crucible's a third full. I charge it again. It's a little over half full. I charge it again. It's almost full. And each charge takes 15-20 minutes to melt. Whereas these nice clean ingots here will melt down once and fill the crucible up, and there'll be very little dross to skim off. It'll be nice clean metal for casting. So that's why I go to the intermediate step of casting ingots. Then it's fun, let's face it. It's a lot of fun playing with 2,000 degree metal. So anyway, thanks for watching my evening pour. It was pretty impressive, I think, in the dark. And I'll be casting stuff soon. Watch for more videos. Thanks.